Hey LeGrand Alive, welcome to Coffee with Will, brought to you by Grand Ron Hospital, Anything 2 Digital, EONI, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, and Les Schwab Tire Center. And I'm here today with Chris Pender, who is the owner and operator of ATF Tactical Solutions. Did I say that right?
ATS.
ATS Tactical Solutions, which is a local self-defense and situational awareness firm here, right, in LeGrand, Oregon. And he's here today to chat with me a little bit about his business himself and just some ways that we can employ self-defense and situational awareness tactics in our own lives. So thank you, Chris, for coming in and chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me, I'm kind of interested. Now, Chris has a lot of training in self-defense and situational awareness from his time in the military, as well as I understand some police training and so on and so forth. What made you kind of want to get into this? Tell me that story.
Well, it's fun. Really, I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. I got into mixed martial arts when I was working at the jail over in Umatilla County, and I fell in love with it. And then a buddy of mine talked me into trying out a different type of training, which is a weapons-based system, and really fell in love with that. And so I've been training other people for, probably 10 years.
Wow.
Off and on, 10 years.
So what made you kind of decide you wanted to go into business doing this?
Well, school's expensive.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So I figured, I can either go to school, get in a bunch of debt, or I can try and open my own business and hopefully not incur a bunch of debt.
That is a logical train of thought. So tell me a little bit about your business. What exactly do you do? What is self-defense, and especially what is situational awareness?
Okay, so situational awareness is essentially knowing what's going on around you. Always being kind of tuned in, not necessarily paranoid. Like you don't want to be always looking over your shoulder and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just kind of knowing the general vibe of what's going on around you. This is probably the single most important way that a person can stay out of trouble.
So when you walk into a room, kind of take me through what goes into your brain. How does that process sort of work? What happened when you walked into the studio? What did you think about? And I promise, I won't take it personally. This is a very undefensible position.
A little bit. Well, I shouldn't say undefensible. So when you walk into the office here, there's doors everywhere.
That is true.
And so, very first thing I do when I walk into a room is I get a layout of the room. I try to see how many adjoining rooms there are, avenues of approach, that kind of thing. I instantly try to figure out how many people are there, and not necessarily a number, but just like, is it under 10, more than 10, and where they're at. If they're clustered in a certain place, why are they clustered there? These kinds of things go through my head. But I've been doing this a long time. So
yeah,
for somebody who is kind of new to the concept, I mean, just knowing where your exits are, where your entrances are, how many doors you see, like for adjoining rooms and stuff like that, and knowing where your people are, that's really
that's the baseline.
That's the baseline right there. Yeah.
So what situation would information like that be helpful for? Like, I'll be honest. Like when I walk into a room, the first things I think about are, where is the food and where's the bathroom? Those are the things that go through my brain. Those are the things that go through my brain. Where's the peanut butter and where's other places. So, what situation? Like, why would I want to be thinking about that? How could that help me?
Well, it's more of just being ready for really anything. Anything from natural disaster and being able to leave a building quickly to, robberies or, mass shootings, anything like that. It really runs the gamut. You want to be able to react without being surprised. That shock factor generally tends to shut people down. And so those few valuable seconds of where you could be, like a deer in headlights versus actually acting, those can be crucial.
So the surprise factor is what you kind of are wanting to avoid. You're wanting to avoid being disabled by your surprise.
Yeah, I mean baseline.
Baseline.
Yeah.
Baseline. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me because I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but there's a concept called mindfulness, which is something that a lot of people use for very different things, which is, but it really all boils down to the same concept of being aware in the situation that you're in, being aware of yourself, being aware of your surroundings. And it almost sounds similar to what you're saying is like when you walk in a room, not just kind of existing in your head, but also just kind of just perceiving what is the situation I'm in, what am I doing, where are the people here, do you see any parallels there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so now that being said, is there other places in our lives, maybe you could tell like us if there's other places in our lives that we could use like situational awareness techniques to be more effective human beings, essentially.
Everywhere.
So can you give an example of that?
So, grocery shopping.
Okay. I do that a lot.
Most of
That's where the food is.
Right, exactly. So, grocery shopping, you walk into the grocery store and most people, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but most people instantly know where the cash registers are. They instantly know where the produce is. They instantly know where the deli is or the frozen food or the meat or whatever, right? And some people, not all people, will think, okay, I need to go down this aisle to get this item, and then they'll see like 8 people in this aisle and they'll be like, I'm gonna wait. And they move on to, this is situational awareness. This is actually an instinctive way of preserving your own safety. Most people look at it more from a convenience standpoint, but really, truly, you're keeping yourself out of a bottleneck. You're keeping yourself away from too many people. So you are keeping yourself safe, and you know where everything is. So if you need to get somewhere quickly, you know where to go. So
maybe like there's a level of almost increasing your efficiency. When you walk into a grocery store, instead of just kind of keeping your nose down and being like, I'm going to go here, here, and here, taking 2 or 3 seconds to look and be like, well, okay, what's on my list? What could I, which ones could I categorize? What people are around me? Are there areas which are fuller and more like difficult to navigate? Well, maybe I should go to those last and wait for them to kind of boil down. Those kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Okay, well, maybe I'll have to start taking a few seconds every time that I walk into a room to increase my efficiency. So one of the other things that I was kind of, wanting to ask you about, because self-defense, there's a lot of self-defense teachers, and especially in mixed martial arts, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Aikido and other Eastern martial art techniques, which are not necessarily based around violent self-defense. But is there a way, for people to use self-defense techniques that don't necessarily require violence, or to minimize the need for violence in a situation, to minimize the chances of violence having to be used?
Sure. I think first we have to define violence. Are we talking about the act itself, or are we talking about the result? if we're talking about the result of people being hurt, then yes, there's absolutely ways to mitigate that. If we're talking about the act itself, it's really situationally dependent. I mean, somebody's coming after you with a knife. I mean, you're not exactly going to, I'm a pacifist, please stop. You know?
Please? Pretty please with a cherry on top?
Yeah. It just doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
you know, so if we're talking about violence as a response to stimulus, then yes, there are points when it's absolutely necessary, in my opinion, in order to preserve your own life or the life of your loved ones, or you know, your safety or whatever. But does that mean that you have to break people or kill them in order to, you know, affect your survival? No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the masters from a lot of these Eastern martial arts, their philosophies are that true mastery means that you don't have to injure or kill your opponent.
Huh. So are there techniques of self-defense that enable you to be able to disable your opponent without enacting, like you said, harming or killing them?
There are. I've found that in our society, it's way more difficult to do that, and takes a lot more training.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, there are.
Yeah,
you
just have to go and talk to Chris, and he'll teach you all of them.
You'll be studying for like 10 years, but
well, fair enough. Fair enough. I have heard that that the highest level is of the Aikido masters. They say that one cannot be a true pacifist unless one understands the power of violence that you have, or something like that, and are able to direct it, or something like that. There was a quote that I read one time.
There's really another quote, and I can't remember who said it, but to ensure peace, one must prepare for war.
Interesting.
So,
very cool. So I guess that we're kind of running out of time here, and I kind of want you to, you know, if there's one tip that you could maybe give to Eastern Oregonians about self-defense, like in a situation, how to prepare for your bodily safety. You can think about this for a second. What would something like that be? And I kind of want you to look at the camera and tell them.
I would say probably planning. Situational awareness should start the second you step out the door. So planning your day, planning your route, knowing when you're going to be somewhere, and having somebody else know when you're going to be there, when you're going to be home, these kinds of things. Very, very important for your safety. If you're a half hour late somewhere, somebody knows that something's up and can either give you a call or, you know, do something like that to try and find you. That's probably, I mean, just planning. Planning is probably the number one thing that people generally don't do.
So I guess the feeling that I'm getting is that the really essential part of this is situational awareness, and the self-defense is kind of a last resort when situational awareness fails. Because you're going to go into a room, you're going to be aware of a situation, you're going to plan ahead for it. You want to be out of those doors before anything goes down. You don't want to have to be there to have to employ this other stuff to defend yourself directly.
Well said.
Well, there you go. You heard it right there, LeGrand Alive. If you're interested in learning more, contact Chris Pender at ATS Tactical Solutions right here in LeGrand, Oregon. And thank you for tuning in to Coffee with Will, brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything Too Digital, EONI, Les Schwab Tires, and Northwest Furniture and Mattress. I may have said them twice, but that's okay. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
For coming in and chatting with me. We'll see you next time on Coffee with Will.